This time I'd like to take a motion to open the public hearing for the CDBG grant application motion. Councilor Bachman, my Councilor Gibbs, all in favor to open the public hearing? The public hearing is now open at 5 p.m. As previously advertised to the public in accordance with Community Development Block Grant CDBG regulations, the City of Plattsburgh will now hold a public hearing for the purpose of hearing public comment on the City of Plattsburgh's community development needs and to discuss the possible submission of a CDBG application for the 2023 program year. The CDBG program is administered by the New York State Office of Community Renewal, OCR, and will make available to eligible communities during the 2023 program years approximately $20 million via public infrastructure, public facilities, and community planning programming for non-entitlement communities. The CDBG program provides funding for housing, economic development, public facilities, and public infrastructure and planning activities with the principal purpose of benefiting low to moderate income persons. The City of Plattsburgh is applying for $1 million in CDBG funds to support a water transmission main replacement project in the area of Grand Hill Road, and all $1 million in requested CDBG funding is proposed for activities that benefit low to moderate income persons in support of the CDBG program's national objective. No proposed CDBG funded activities are likely to result in a displacement, relocation, acquisition, or replacement of housing. Though, if any such displacement, relocation, acquisition, or replacement of housing is deemed necessary, the city shall follow the current residential anti-displacement and relocation assistance plans prepared by the New York State Division of Housing and Community. The hearing will allow for citizen participation in the development of the proposed grant application. Comments on the CDBG program and the proposed project will be received at this time. Would anybody like to make public comment on the CDBG application right now?
Is there an option later for public comment?
Yes. Yep. Seeing none, I'll now make a motion to close the public hearing. A motion by Councilor Gibbs, second by Councilor Bob. All in favor? Aye. We're now closed. At this time, I'd like to call the July 20th, 2023 regular meeting of the Common Council City Council to order. It's now 5:03 p.m. Please rise and join me in pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation. Charlie, please conduct the roll call.
Mayor Rosenbeck.
Here.
Council Bond. Here. Council Kelly.
Here.
Council Gibbs. Here. Council Talon. Here. Council Bob. Here. Council Moore.
Here. All councils have received the minutes of the July 6th, 2023 regular meeting and the special meeting held July 10th, 2023. If there are no additions, deletions, or corrections, I'll now entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the motion. Councilor Bob, second. Councilor Talon, any changes, deletions, alterations? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. I'll now recognize those in the audience who wish to share their thoughts and concerns with the council on any topic. Please come to the podium to be acknowledged. When called upon, we ask that you please state your legal name and address for the record. Hello, how are you?
Okay,
Great.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alice Elizabeth Purdue, and I live at 4 Mansfield Drive, Plattsburgh. And I am the reality check coordinator for Tobacco Free Prevention Ethics. And so Reality Check is a youth-led and adult-supported movement in New York State that aims to empower youth to become leaders in their community, exposing the manipulative and deceptive marketing tactics of the tobacco industry. And so our fund, through word of mouth as well as online, has heard quite a few complaints from community members about the sheer amount of tobacco litter in our downtown Plattsburgh community, as well as the pervasiveness of tobacco use and smoking within downtown areas. So my reality check, I need to do something about that. And they'd like to share their experiences with you today, not only their exposure to tobacco smoking use within our downtown community, as well as our pickup efforts as well. Hello, my name is Tessa Coleman and I live on South Catherine Street. I'm here to talk about the amount of tobacco litter we as a group picked up in the local park areas on July 6th. In just an hour at each park, we picked up this much tobacco litter. I'd like to mention how we picked up a significant amount more litter at Betty Little Park over the McDonough Monument, even though Betty Little is the newest park downtown. Also, even though these parks are supposed to be tobacco free, there is little to no signage in these areas to enforce this policy. And the signs that are there are difficult to both understand and see.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Peyton Lonnie, and I live on Crystal in Sheffield. I have actually experienced where I was in the Southwark and the Romans for the 4th of July parade, and I saw many adults smoking weed young children, and some of them were blowing the smoke into their faces. Tobacco exposure at any amount can be very harmful to the environment and to children and adults. Children should not be exposed to tobacco because their bodies and brains are still developing. I've had an experience where I was at work and people would blow smoke right into my face as I was talking about the action. So my name is Amy Burgess and live on Main Road. This 4th of July, I went to Community Park towards the fireworks, although all public property downtown is just being smoke for the environment. There were many people smoking, which made it difficult to breathe and enjoy themselves at the community.
We're all members of our local concert communities, even those of us that live on the outskirts towards Town and community. We know that there's a policy on record for the city of Plattsburgh that any public property is meant to be tobacco and smoke free. Despite that, we find very little signage in these areas and little to no enforcement. And it would be very beneficial to the health, safety, and livelihood of our community to make them happier, healthier, and safer places to be for every member of our community. And without having excessive tobacco exposure, especially for the younger members of our community that have no choice in the matter. I'd like to submit this to the council in case you'd like to see the sheer amount, even though these already packaged and then sealed for over a week.
It's not over here, you want to, yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to wish to share the comments and concerns with the council on any topic?
Ira Barbell, I'm on Comfort Leagues, on Harborview Homeowners Association. And I want to address today some concerns that we have about the terror warning like that. And I think that Councilor Moore previously had shared some information, I think, about especially the round that is on the bottom of Hamilton Street. As essentially a memorial to Terry Warren. It's give a little history, I guess. And that roundabout is a position, about half of the roundabout's position on Harvard property. And one of the members identified that a number of years ago, and we were concerned about liability. Then at that time, we approached, I think it was Mayor Calvin, was the council in 2015. And he worked with Dean Scheller at that time. And we had no interest in changing anything around that path. But we wanted to ensure that if somebody came down that path and hit that roundabout and fell and broke an arm, that a smart lawyer quickly figure out that that's on Harborview property, as well as the city's responsibility, and we're going to end up at a lawsuit. And that was our concern. And Dean, I'm sure we did all the work, he drafted an agreement that we signed that said we were indemnified from any liability that would occur if there was an accident that occurred on that property. And that's all we were used to. So that was, we got to this point. Now, the concern of some of the people at Harborview is the public work trucks that are picking up garbage on Terry Warden bypass. I'm not an expert on trucks, but I think they're called dualies when you have 4 back wheel tires on the truck. And these trucks are essentially wider than a regular pickup truck. And what happens is, at the oval, it's only 5 feet wide, tarmac. You get around on the sides of the oval. Whereas,
I'm sorry, I'm trying to picture this, you're meaning the roundabout, the round.
Well, Terry Gordon.
Right, so the path goes down to the water, there's a roundabout Memorial, and then it goes like
Turns it
along,
goes.
okay, I gotcha, yeah.
And to go around that, it's tarmac on most, all around, it's a circular tarmac around that oval. And that tarmac is about 5 feet wide, approximately. The path is 10 feet wide. And when the truck tries to go through, it goes off the path with 2 wheels, or 3 wheels, really, because it is a 4-wheel back axle on that, which is wider than a regular pickup truck and heavier than a regular pickup truck, and it is eroding the soil next to the path. And if you, I didn't bring pictures with me, but that time like it was coming, I had pictures. But it's dropped down, a couple of inches, 2-3 inches from the tarmac, and it's dirt now rather than any grass up next to the path. And we are concerned about 3 things, really. One is, if somebody comes down that path and they come off the path and it drops down now and they get injured, is that covered in the agreement that the city would be protecting us from liability? That's a slightly different question than the question we asked before. Secondly, the agreement, as in a couple of areas in the agreement, states that the city will maintain the property in that area. And our concern, when you have a lot that's being developed on one side, will the city fill that in, or is there something that can be done? We don't know the answer to that, but we'd like the city to look into what can be done to mitigate the digging down of the dirt by the trucks. And the third thing we would suggest is you ought to take a look at, maybe it's regular pickup, or maybe there's a smaller vehicle that can go down, or you could have them pick those garbage cans that Hamilton and Jay are probably no more than 25 yards from the road. They could throw those garbage bags into the truck, go over by the gym, and they could get on the 10-foot wide tarmac and pick up the rest of the garbage bag without any problem and ride up at the end of the trip. So we're asking the city to take a look at that, hopefully give us some response to the liability questions. Is that any different for us at this point? And then look at what could be done to mitigate this. But it's potentially hazard when you see how many young kids now have electric skateboards that are going 20 miles an hour and come around that curve on that electric bikes now. If you miss that, I can tell from experience. I used to run, not here, but in South Carolina, and there was a tarmac path around Wild Lake where we live. And one early morning, I stepped on the edge of that path, which had about a 2-inch drop, twisted my foot, went to the hospital to have the bone, the split put on, and cast in my bone. So it doesn't take a lot if you have a big drop. It doesn't have to be a huge drop. And I just want to thank you for this.
Absolutely, thanks, Eric. Anybody else that would like to share their thoughts and concerns with council on any tonight?
Dave Merkel, Cumberland Ave, Oxford. Number of things. This one's gone by, but assessments, I see you were talking about that and giving more money for the services on this agenda. I was a beneficiary of on 2 properties out in the city of a 94% increase and an 87% increase in March. That's pretty much almost doubling this tax for this year because of how things fall. I'm not sure how you're talking about lowering your tax rate for 1,000, possibly. For me, it's gonna have to go down a lot, but I know that won't happen. So just that's a concern for people that are renting space downtown and trying to keep things full when taxes like that keep going up. And in the downtown area, you have a special assessment district. And I was looking at the 5-year plan. And on one hand, I see that there's zero surplus for that fund budgeted for the next 5 years, at least planned. And it was for this current judgment also. So I suppose that's good, but I think maybe spending everything that you think maybe isn't good. So I'd like to look at, past administrations have told us they were going to eliminate the special assessment district, and it's past time for that. And so my next thing is kind of like Mr. Barbell's. I walk that path, and I do a lot of walking in the mornings in the city, and notice a general lack of upkeep of city properties. We get these nice grants, and we build these like Betty Little Park and these paths and things. But somehow there's no money in those grants, and I don't know how the mechanics work, but there's got to be a maintenance quotient to that, because the Betty Little Park, I mean, the kids are having fun at the water pad or whatever it's called, but it looks like hell. I mean, there's weeds, there's mulch, when it needs watering, I don't see the water. It would be nice to see us take some pride in what we're given and maintain things. And switching gears to maintaining, I know that we've entertained bids or will entertain bids for the city hall and front steps. The front steps of the Champlain Monument are the same construction, and I'm not sure vintage, but anyways, same construction. And someone, if they haven't already, should include that in that package, because same kind of work to be done, and if you're gonna get somebody around to do that, I mean, it needs work down there. It's all hollowed out, basically. I guess in my last, well, I noticed probably the city striping contract. We have all these new white emblems all over the streets of the city. I was just on Park Avenue today, and I noticed it goes the whole way on both sides. Not sure what that's all about. I do ride a bike also. Just seems weird, and the road guys that are being talked about, not a good idea. The electric bikes in the city. I was doing a video. Probably 85 to 90% of them aren't following general traffic laws. I think they're motorized vehicles. I think they should be registered. I think that they should be licensed, and I think that the riders should be wearing helmets. And they should follow the law. I mean, they're going against traffic. I don't know what it is about riding a bike against traffic, but somehow people in this area get it all wrong. They ride the bike against traffic and they walk with traffic. So I can't figure that out. For 3 months a year, I think that, or 4 months that we have heavy bike use, if you want to call it that. I don't think rearranging the whole city makes sense. And I was here maybe about a year ago and asked, I know this isn't a response kind of thing, but it's still like, who's paying for the electric and electric car chargers. Most of the city. As far as I know, you don't have to pay usually. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to make comment to council on any doctor?
My name is Donald Plus, I reside at 227 South Memphis. Maybe talk about the Clinton County Transport or Public Transit new bus schedule. It's quite a problem. People are missing work every hour. It's coming through every 2 hours to each spot. And at first was good I complained. And at first wasn't going through the public housing authority at all. Now that they can stop there, but we had to call. It's late and I don't feel time is gonna solve this. I know it's fairly new, but given time, I think it's just gonna get worse. Every bus is late to the, central downtown, area, at least by 10-20 minutes, even I took the bus today to get here. And again, late. By 10 minutes, the other bus was coming in, 10 minutes later, so 20 minutes late. And, one of the routes, Northwest City has. They're going to San Plain Center at 8:23, and then at the end, circle at 12 minutes later. And also the route from Southwest City goes through, just for example, 8:20 at Market, or 8:27 on Market 32. And Circle the Mall comes back 12 minutes later at 8:39. Which is, seems way redundant. There's people missing work. For this, that have to find alternative transportation, taxis. I know a taxi that just to get to Walmart from where I'm at is $11, $12, $24 each way instead of $5. Low income people are having trouble with this new schedule. And also individuals who have to be lifted onto the vehicle are causing it to be even more, they have to get transported anyway. I'm saying that, I know it's a county thing, but I know the city is, obviously one of the main parts of the county, and the route scheduling will be made from someone here at City Hall. Can't recall the name, but it's not just me, it's everyone on the bus that's complaining, and it's the drivers also better. If that driver, a driver quit, was there for a long time. And I just would like to see something can be done about this. I don't know if you have a schedule, if you like, I just got one that came off.
Yeah, thank you.
Just put that under consideration.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else would like to address the council at any time? Seeing none, we'll now go to committee reports. Each standing committee is chaired by a councilor, and I'll now call upon the chairperson of each committee, starting with city operations councilman.
Well, everything was not scheduled, so we'll have one in August.
Finance community development, we did have a meeting last week, items 7.13 through 7.145 are on tonight's agenda for consideration. City infrastructure council.
Oh, sorry.
You're fine.
No updates, no updates.
Thank you. Public safety council, Bob.
We had our meeting and we've got 2 items on the agenda tonight.
We'll now move on to liaison reports. Thank you. We'll now move on to liaison reports. Fletcher Public Library council.
Nothing new to report. The trustee meeting is next Tuesday.
Thank you. Fletcher Municipal Light Department council. Given.
So I have nothing to report. Our next scheduled meeting is at the end of August.
Climate Smart Task Force liaison, Councilor Gibbs and Ward Councilor Town.
So the first, we've basically taken a hiatus for summer vacation.
Couple months.
So Rochelle has put together a comprehensive timeline of our organics work, which is going to be submitted to you.
I'm meeting with Rochelle next week as well, even though the committee is on hiatus. I'm still meeting with Rochelle to continue that momentum.
And there's another grant opportunity that came open, and I forwarded it to her for the chicken that we're doing for a drone composter.
Yeah.
Okay, then I am going to report that there is a happy hour involving learning about heat pumps going on at the Naked Turtle right now. It's about 7 o'clock. So if anybody wants to go to the happy hour after this meeting, then go learn about heat pumps and learn how to save some money, save some energy. And also, I want to go back to what one of our public commenters was saying. Just it's something we have talked about with the task force is that public transportation definitely does need to serve the citizens of our city. And just if you have that schedule that's not allowing people to get to work or get to doctor's appointments in an efficient manner, then maybe it's something that needs to, take some discussion. Okay, then that's all I have to report today.
Thank you. Any staff member reports? No special committee reports. I'll now report on the payroll for the various city departments of the city of Plattsburgh approved by the common council for the week ending July 12, 2023 in an amount of $673,000. $389.02. I'll also report on the bills audited by the Common Council for the weeks ending July 14, 2023, in the amount of $815,143.54, and July 19, 2023, in the amount of $448,396. Before voting on the following resolutions, I will note that the majority of these resolutions have been thoroughly discussed by the appropriate committees and department heads. We're now taking action on these items in large part due to the recommendation of those committees. Ms. Harlan, will you please please read the titles of the resolutions to be acted upon?
Item 7.138, revising capital project H5110.87, revision 2022 downtown improvement project.
Motion by Councilor Gibbs, second by Councilor Bob. Discussion.
Yeah, I had some questions about this. This is for the farmers market group, right? 7138. Right? Am I right?
Yes.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Now, this is a question, would you mind answering them?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so.
Matt, can you please come? Yeah. Catch your voice on the public.
So I went back to the finance meeting and I didn't see any drawn plans. The last time they did a recommendation for the roof renovation, there were schematics, there wasn't anything with this proposal.
So for this proposal, this resolution is specifically to increase funding in the capital project paid for the design services. There's a separate resolution for design, bid management, construction inspection. That design proposal will result in schematics for a new roof to be built at the farmers market to fully and finally address the persistent roof leaks we have been unable to stop at.
All right, so that's why there's no plans, because this is just to pay them to start.
Correct.
So, do you know what their recommendation is at this point? I've heard that the recommendation is like a new roof overlay.
The current thinking is that if the structural elements can be shown to support the weight of a new roof to be built over the existing roof, that would be preferable to removing the existing roof and building a new one in its place. Because the latter option will require adjustments to several other building components, where if you just build a new roof over the existing one, you can just sit there and not allow rain in every time there's a storm during market day.
Okay, and is this also going to address ventilation? Because the existing ventilation is just not.
It's going to address the roof. It's also going to address some lighting issues within the building. There are no specific items to address the ventilation. We've been in discussions with the farmers market leadership. And as part of the phase 2 improvements to the farmers market, we added 2 large exhaust fans on the roof. But it is still a tin metal building, and in direct sunlight on a summer day, it's very difficult to keep it cool. And the farmers market themselves use several large fans to move air around. Right now, that's the best that we can hope for with the building as it is.
So we're not going to remove the existing roof. So is there any legal reason for that, or just, is it just logistics and?
It's a design consideration. In certain situations, it is easier to simply build a new structure over the existing one rather than to try and remove what at this point I believe is a 70-year-old roof, because you don't know what will happen to the sides of the building and the other building components when you do that. It might end up being a much larger project than if you simply just build a separate roof on top of the existing one.
I mean, I don't know how the rest of council feels, but I feel really strongly that there needs to be, as part of this plan, when it finally comes before council, has to be a strong ventilation plan. It's because it's intolerably hot, even with those fans.
Sure, I can speak to the design consultant about what additional steps can be taken as part of this process to try and lower the temperature in there on the base.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there could be like a design feature to the roof that could, insulate in a positive way.
Yeah, so we can work that into the discussion.
Or being able to get the windows open somehow. Wow, that would be terrifying.
I mean, that would also help.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Council Bond,
Yes.
Council Kelly,
Yes.
Council Gibbs,
Yes.
Council Talon.
Yes.
Council Bob.
Yeah.
Council Moore,
Yes.
Carries.
Item 7.139, authorize budget adjustments to provide appropriations to the city's assessment services.
Motion, Counselor Kelly, second. Counselor Gibbs, discussion.
What is this exactly for? We're increasing?
Yeah,
what
so-
we're paying the assessors?
Yeah, so the city pays a particular amount based on the amount of other municipalities the assessor assesses. Fewer communities that the assessor assesses, the city pays more to offset the expense.
Did the recent assessments of commercial properties factor into this?
This is completely separate
Separate
from any assessments or any additional work that the assessor does.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Bond,
Yes.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
Yes.
Counselor Talon. Yes. Counselor Bob,
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
Yes,
Carried.
Item 7.140, authorization to approve the 2023 consolidated funding application, Climate Smart Communities Grant for Bridger Hub Street and Court Street improvement.
Motion by Counselor Talon, second by Counselor Gibbs, discussion.
So the matching from our perspective, and we're gonna do anything until we're approved for that, is that correct?
Correct.
And is this going to do to those streets what we had originally hoped would be part of the Margaret Street
Correct.
plan?
Yeah, it's already in the design, this package design that's being grant funded or potentially grant funded.
You know what kind of time frame we're looking at before we'll know?
End of the year, that's typically when the CFA results come out
And is Bartlett Judas doing the work on this,
on,
the grant application?
yeah,
Thank you.
any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Bond,
Yes.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
Yes.
Counselor Talon. Yes. Counselor Bob.
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
yes,
Carried.
Item 7.141, authorization to approve the 2023 consolidated funding application, LWRP Harborside Master Plan Implementation Phase 1 grant.
Motion. Counselor Bob, second by Counselor Kelly, discussion. Roll call.
Counselor Bond.
Yes.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
Yes.
Counselor Talon. Yes. Counselor Bob.
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
yes,
Carried.
Item 7.142, authorization to approve the 2023 consolidated funding application, New York Main Street Technical Assistance Program, grant for downtown property improvement.
Motion. Counselor Bob, second by Counselor Kelly, discussion.
That's good. That's me. I have some questions. It says in the description, downtown improvements, Margaret Street and Clinton Street. What are the properties that are going to fall under this?
Yeah, so if you recall in the DRI, there was a number of downtown grant program properties that applied for that money that did not make it. Those are the properties that we're looking at targeting for this grant, similar grant opportunity, similar improvements to downtown building storefronts and facade, second floor apartment renovations.
I don't recall seeing addresses or anything in the resolution.
I don't think we added addresses.
The resolution only requires that the street names be included, not the specific addresses. I'm not sure if that's a privacy concern, but it's what comes from the funding agency.
So we don't have access to it in the council.
I can certainly provide the council with a specific address, it's just not required to be included in the resolution.
So I would like to see the addresses.
Yeah, I'll provide that to the mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Bond.
Yes.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
Yes.
Counselor Talon. Yes. Counselor Bob.
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
yes,
Carried.
Item 7.143, authorize agreement for design, bidding, construction management services for improvements to the farmers market road.
Motion, Counselor Talon, second by Counselor Kelly, discussion. Roll call. Oh, I'm sorry.
this is the payment for the aforementioned.
This is the award to ADA for the previously approved design cost. Yeah,
Thank you.
roll call.
Counselor Bond.
Yes.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
Yes.
Counselor Talon. Yes. Counselor Bob.
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
Yes,
Carried.
Item 7.144, award the final design and bid management service agreement for phase 1 improvements to City Park.
Motion. Counselor Kelly, second by Counselor Bob, discussion.
Yes, I have some questions on that one. Last year, you paid Bartlett Judas $119,300, finance meeting in May last year. And I see with this expenditure, we're going to pay $291,500 to EPA, which is a total of almost $500,000. So the document itself have some questions about. It says here that it's the attached overall capital project budget. She outlined that conceptual total projected costs to be designed and bid at $7,283,875. Then the next bullet says it is understood that all items will be designed and bid as alternates in an attempt to select the best value items to match the city's phase one monies available, approximately $2,500,000. So in the document, it goes through and it references a construction budget that's very small up here in the corner, and then we've got the parks with some of the proposals, but the proposals don't equal $2,500,000. So I'm confused about what we are actually moving forward on. Are we moving forward on 7 million plus, knowing we have 2.5? Are we bonding the rest and creating a capital project? I don't understand the difference here in the money.
So what the council is being asked to approve by this resolution is a service agreement for final design and bid management of the selected park improvements that appear along with the service agreement. These improvements were the result of an extensive public input process and then working those down to what we felt was a manageable number in each park, with the total estimated construction costs for all of these improvements at roughly $7.5 million. Of course, what we have left for construction in the capital project at this point is about $2.5 million. So the intention with this agreement is to have the design firm complete the final design for every improvement listed here with the resolution. It is not the intention of the city to construct every single one of those improvements in 2024. We have $2.5 million to play with. There will be a detailed discussion as the final design process moves on to determine which improvements should be included in a base bid to be put out to all eligible contractors, and which items should be included as alternate bids based on cost expectations that might cause them to exceed the capital project budget. So by designing all of these improvements now, we are relatively assured that several of them will be constructed during the 2024 season. But even those that are not, for cost considerations, we will have final designs which will serve as the basis either for future grant applications or for future account for construction projects.
So are there going to be future design costs from AEDA or a contractor, or is this it?
Not for the projects that are listed under this service. This covers the final design and bid management for everything under the agreement. If there are additional improvements to the parks that are not listed along with this, those would entail additional final design costs. But we feel this is a good and reasonable phase one physical improvements for the larger parks.
The 2.6.
The 2.5 is what we have left. Yeah.
2.7.
So what are supply chains like for these kinds of materials and upgrades? Are we anticipating realistically that we're going to be able to do this in 2024?
Supply chain issues vary widely from material to material. A lot of the proposals included here, for example, the implementation of perimeter walking paths in several of the parks, those use standard materials that have very short lead times because they're readily available from any number of vendors. Some of the more complex design tasks, for instance, the playgrounds, there may be longer lead times for some of those parts. And if that is the case, when we bid this project out later this fall, that's just something that we're going to have to adjust to when the time comes.
One other question, and it has to do with one of the proposed projects on the list. And it's for the Penfield Park, where it references the inclusive playground.
Yep.
So it says, despite the high cost of the Penfield playground, we intend to fundraise from the community for a considerable portion of construction expenses. Having a completed final design will be essential for marketing purposes. As this is intended to be the showpiece playground for the city's park system, final design costs will serve as the city's down payment to demonstrate buy-in and seeking additional funds from community members. It's not expected that the playground item will be included in the initial construction bid spec. It's my understanding that we could not solicit donations from the community for city projects.
Oh, I didn't know that, darn.
I'll defer to the legalities.
So, I mean, this is a statement to the public that this is the recommendation. It sounds like it can be done, but it's at least from my understanding, can't. If someone wants to go ahead and give us money, that's great, but this seems to me like a direct solicitation of donation, and I don't know what the propriety of that is. Steve, can you answer that?
You're correct, city cannot directly solicit.
So you can't do fundraising,
Okay, no.
Municipalities cannot. There can be unsolicited donations, but we can't go out and conduct a bake sale. Or something like that.
Oh, big, like that.
Sure.
I'm done baking. Okay, Danny, not that, okay.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Vaughn,
Yes.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
No.
Counselor Talon, Counselor Bob,
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
Yes.
Carried.
Item 7.145, approval of the 5-year project as revised.
Motion. I'm sorry, the plan, you all know what you're voting on right now. It's not a the project, it's 5-year projection. I can look at the typo. Sorry, motion. Counselor Bob, second by Counselor Kelly, discussion. Roll call.
Counselor Vaughn,
So we're voting on what right now?
The 5-year projection as revised based on the conversation that we had in the special meeting and then the subsequent conversation that we had at the finance committee meeting.
And this,
Correct.
I actually had some questions, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry, yes, please.
So, I read the email.
I'm sorry, Counselor Kwan,
Oh,
did you
okay.
have anything further?
no, I just didn't understand what we were voting on.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot different in this, so.
And again, like, so when we had the meeting on Monday, the feedback that was solicited was made, changes were made in the document. A summary of those changes were then sent to council on Thursday, last Thursday, before the finance committee meeting.
Right,
We had further discussions at finance regarding this, brief discussions, but not a lot. Just a summary, like, hey, this is available, changes were made based on the Monday's conversation. And you have the updated document as revised from the original 5-year plan, that was sent out.
yeah, there are a few things that were even added, or, I mean, not added, different, there are some. But it's hard for me to look at there
Okay,
and tell you exactly.
gotcha, yep.
what it is.
Yeah, what changed were based on the conversations that we had on Monday.
Right.
Okay. Yep, and then, the updated document again was provided on Thursday. It was briefly discussed. The summary of what we discussed on Monday was discussed on Thursday. Again, I said, please provide additional feedback or additional changes that folks wanted to see so that we could be updated further.
Right,
And this is the same document that was provided on that Thursday.
okay,
I had not received any additional feedback or additional requests for changes since those conversations and since the changes were made and sent out. Sorry, Councilor Gibbs.
So I wasn't here for the finance meeting, as you know, I saw the email go out that addressed the reduction of the tax rate
Yes.
and it calculated what that would do for revenues and so forth. But there are other changes in here that I didn't. That had nothing to, well, don't explicitly connect to that, and I didn't really understand that.
The change, yeah, sorry, Councilor Gibbs, the changes that additional changes were made were the clarifications and assumptions that folks said, hey, we'd like to see more detail on those clarifications and assumptions. That's what those numbers in on the right-hand side, which were blank when it was first presented to council.
So, for example, on the general fund page,
Yes,
under revenues. On the, here's a piece of paper that starts reading, the category, this is other revenue. In the original document that we had looked at in June. Starting in 2024, that other revenue line is 3,686,979. In this updated document, the revenue changes to 4,311,000. And is that? And that is with a $10 tax rate. And then reducing What causes that to go up to 4,311,000?
So the number that you just referenced, 368,979, is the 2023 number.
It's been 2024 across 2028, it goes up to 4,311,000.
Yeah.
Whereas in the old document, it's 3,686,000 across the board, and it changes the projected increase from -8. Remember, -8.19%, and it changes it to 16 plus 16.93. So what is the, what can we attribute that change to?
The only change, the other revenue line is an increase in fees. And fees for service and permit costs. That's the only change there, and we have increased that over the last several years, and you anticipate increasing some of that. Going into next year. The change to the mill rate would only be reflected in the real property tax line. The
Right,
very top line. It would
That
not
part I
impact,
understood.
yeah, so it would not impact any other revenues that you see on that section of this document.
okay, and so I understand that it doesn't impact it, but the numbers on this document are different than what we saw in June. And I just want to know what you're attributing that increase to.
I would have to go back and look, to be honest, but this is again, when we had the conversation on Monday. This is the document that was presented. The changes that were made based on those conversations were incorporated into this document, and this document was resent to folks.
So
I'd have to go back to look to see where that change was made or how that change was made.
So under expenditures, where we have the line called personal services. That changes as well. So there are some changes in this document that are not explicitly connected to the tax rate that we did not discuss as part of that special meeting. And there are a number of them in here, and I just wondered what those are. So personal services changed. I'm talking about this is the general fund page.
Yep.
Under expenditures.
Yep, absolutely.
Equipment and capital outlay change. Contractual change by quite a bit. Debt service, well, I understand debt service, but it's strange because this blue column that says projected increase, the numbers across don't change, but the percentage on the right changes, so I didn't understand that. Employee benefits goes down. Interfund transfers goes down. Total expenditures become 26,644,867.
26 million.
I'm going all the way over to 2028, so where we're going, it decreases. Revenue is slightly changed.
So just keep in mind that the debt service as it is now is going to decrease significantly. That's probably why you see a total decrease in expenses.
But it's not just that. No. The debt service doesn't change at all. It's just that projected increase, blue column, the number of percentage there changes. I don't understand that. Your debt service doesn't change in terms of the dollar amount.
The debt service changes from 2.7 in 24 to 1.3 in 28.
Okay, 2024 debt service.
Yeah, well, that's assuming that we don't incur any further loans. I mean, we will.
Yeah, and that's a note in the sheet that says that's assumed that is current borrowed monies right now.
Right, and
Plus,
I understand. that.
Yep.
that also includes the roughly 19 million we're gonna add to debt this year. Projected at 4.75%.
So that includes that.
No, I got that part.
Yeah.
All these other categories have changed, and I don't understand why. Surplus deficit columns. Where in 2024, the original plan says we were going to be in a deficit of 451,000, now we are not. And then the surplus continues to go up, even though the tax rate goes down. And then there are a number of things like that. So I just wondered if we could get some answers about why there are changes in almost all these other categories aside from the tax rate.
I am working on the same sheet that I've been sending. I'd have to go back and look. The changes that were made were based on the conversations that we had. The only clarifications that I added were in the clarifications and assumptions of the percentages. Those are comparable percentages each year. The debt service, the interfund transfer, the personnel services, they're all matching based on the current projected increases based on contracts, debt service payments, And any further reduction in expenses across funds, which is what that interfund transfer is. The amount of real property tax is the only number that changes based on the mill rate. Only number that changes based on that $10 mill rate. Everything else is based on percentage increases, historic percentage increases. Yeah, that's the only, I can go back and look to see if I'm working from a different sheet. I don't think I am, but I can certainly try to look to see where that discrepancy is, but I believe this is the same sheet that I also shared on Thursday.
No, it is. I can just, there are all kinds of changes and I just don't understand why they're. But
So this is the same sheet that I shared last Thursday, right? Okay,
I get that, but I just don't, the expenses, I know we're not supposed to, but the expenses, I just have a hard time with this. I mean, I love my gallon.
Well, I think they're quite overly optimistic. I mean, I would love my household expenses to only go up by these tiny numbers over the course of the next 5 years, but I know that's totally unrealistic. I also know that, you know, things come up. I don't think it behooves us to come up with a really glowing report of, oh boy, everything is going to be great. We're going to be rolling and go in 5 years. In my experience in municipal government, that doesn't happen. There's always things that happen that you didn't expect. I think the expenses are way underestimated. I just can't believe that we're gonna use numbers this. It's pretty optimistic.
I'll go back to multiple comments that I said in the past. This has now been the 4th or 5th time this sheet has been in front of council. Y'all can change it the way you see fit.
I would see fit to raise those estimated expenses by at least a couple percent. I would say 3% at a minimum.
And again, we've had this conversation on Monday. I sent out the sheet based on the sheet updates based on that conversation on Monday. And in that email, I said, please, if there's additional changes that you want, please send them to me. I will incorporate them back into this and resend it out. I sent that on, hold on, Jeff, please. I sent that out on Thursday. Nothing. I heard nothing from anybody when I sent this out. Thursday evening, we had a conversation again. Still, I know, Jeff, you said you didn't have time to look at it, but you would get back to me with some feedback. I did not hear from you
I sent you an email
today.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Today.
This morning.
This is a very good explanation on the second page of the general fund section that explains all the expenditures. The purpose services for that includes soon over 23 and 24 based on the contract negotiation. That makes sense. Increase based on capital projects currently active, that's equipment and capital outlay, the next side. Contractual based on percent increase, decrease from 22 to 23. Debt service, principal and interest based on capital plan and currently approved borrowing. Employee benefits is a summary of benefits projected to increase or decrease based on staffing levels and pay rate changes. Interfund transfer for local share to other enterprise funds. So these expenditure changes are explained quite well on the second page. General fund sheet. And I trust that Mr. Marks was in on the debt service portion. I'm sure he got it right.
Based on what we know now.
Yeah, based on what we know now, good it did.
Actually, the interest rate that I use is 4.75, but I think it's going to be close to 3.75 before because the markets are changing. But you know, that would be an update. So I didn't change anything because just want to leave it as a base where we started from.
This is a good thing, I think. It does paint a good picture for the city's finances, but I don't know why we shouldn't celebrate that. It's a good thing. And fairly certain that Mayor Rosenquist in his first year as a budgetary master had done a really good job for creating a surplus when he promised a zero balance budget, creating a significant surplus. So I don't really see where the problem is with what we have here. And as he said, we've all had numerous opportunities to change this or add input in any way, and some of us have done that. And I would say it's time to vote on this thing, either yes or no.
And keep in mind, it's a projection, right? Like this is not, you know, we take it as a guideline. We take it as a guideline, make adjustments as we go. Much like we've done in the last 6 years or 5 years or 4 years, however long before I arrived. Same thing, the projection is what it is, use it as a guiding, one of the guiding principles for creating budgets and planning for the future. As well as the other factors that we use as guiding factors for creating the budget. So changes, again. I've asked multiple times for feedback on making whatever changes y'all wanted to make on this. And so here we are with that document.
Okay, but I really can't get behind, something that shows us over the next 5 years, coming up with $12 million unappropriated balance. Which is just like the school districts are doing a few years back, hoarding the taxpayers' money. This is not a good plan. This should not be in there. If this is where we're trying to head with our city budgets, it's very disingenuous to the taxpayers. We should not be looking to bank money at the taxpayers' expense.
And I think I've shared my philosophy multiple times on that. I agree. I'm not saying that is going to be how it is. And we've seen plans that we've approved that have the city in negative $6 million. I wouldn't say that that's the appropriate way to approve this plan either. The point is that right now, it's a snapshot of what a potential, not to say that is going to be set in stone, but it is, again, it's a guiding document for planning and potentially planning.
I'll have to agree to disagree.
Sure. I'm gonna call the question. Roll call.
Counselor Vaughn,
No,
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
No.
Counselor Talon.
Yes.
Counselor Bob.
Yes.
Counselor Moore,
No,
Mayor Rosas.
Yes, please. Carry.
Item 7.146, Harborside Hotel Development Agreement, secret land lead agency declaration.
One moment, sorry, let me just catch up here. My phone. Motion? Yeah, motion, Councilor Bob, second by Councilor Kelly. No discussion. No, okay, sure. This is approval of being the agency for this is not going through the secret process. No, it's just declaring this council lead agency for this.
And characterizing this action as a step one action.
What
And
does that mean,
if
type one?
we adopt it, then we can turn to the long form and work those questions.
What does that mean, type one action?
Step one's a classification of various actions under seeker, so the options will be type one, which is in general a larger project. Type two, which is in general a very minimal project that doesn't trigger any additional seeker review. And the third option is unlisted, meaning it doesn't fit in either box and it triggers an appropriate review based on the size of that unlisted project.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
Okay, so with that, this common council is lead agency. In this case, there were no other involved agencies identified. Again, the scope of this is fairly limited to the review of the proposed development agreement between the city and DP manager ULF LLC for a potential hotel project down at Harborside. Matt's here as a practical resource, but the intention is to work through the long form part 2 of the environmental assessment form. That's the exercise we've gone through a few times in the past. A few things to highlight before we run through that is the EAF, the environmental assessment form, which was shared with the council, included in an addendum, which highlighted the kind of the limited scope of this review, as well as an exhibit which included various other historic analysis completed on this project site. So that's part of the quote unquote record. With that, unless there's any questions, we can run through the various questions. Okay. So, as you know by now, there are topic questions, and if the topic questions are answered in the negative, we move on to the next topic question. If the topic question is answered in the affirmative, then we review the various sub questions. The options that you would have to review on the sub questions are no or small, or large, moderate to large. Okay, so the first question is whether the proposed action, again, the signing of a development agreement, which again will be subject to future permitting processes by the various boards for an actual project, an actual defined project. Right now, this project itself is conceptual. It's a hotel with about approximately 125 rooms and approximately 4,000 square feet of meeting space, a restaurant, and other ancillary facilities. We know the general location, which would be on the lot B of that subdivision, subdivided parcel down Harborside, but we don't yet have the details, such as the facade, the specific height, all of those site specific details. All of that will be resolved by probably the planning board if and when the project gets there. The rationale is the developer has to spend a significant sum of money to develop those plans. And in order to have that certainty, they require some protection through the form of a development agreement. From the city's perspective, we have real property that's valuable, and we don't want to just sell it to any. We want someone that's going to do a project which the city supports in a fiscally, environmentally, and community responsible way. And that future review by the planning board will include a secret review of its own that will answer some of the questions that we may not be able to answer today because the project is still conceptual. But that review will be much more detailed and will be one of the prerequisites for any final plans. So turning back to the long form, number one, topic question, impact on land. The proposed action may involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site.
Yes.
Okay, so that's just a no, I guess.
Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so having answered that, yes, then we go to 1A. And you will note some citations. I'll pull it to the long form. You know, I have that here with me, so I took a couple notes and we can cite what the applicant put here. And again, the applicant is the developer, the applicant, not the city, to make that clear. Where the developer answered some of those questions. So we have a factual kind of. So the first sub question is whether the proposed action may involve construction on land where depth of the water table is less than 3 feet. In this case, to help you, there's a reference to E-2-D, which references the depth of groundwater is 5 feet. So, yeah. Second, 1B is proposed action may involve construction on slopes of 50% or greater. In this case, may annually knows relative flat site, but there's been no slope, significant slope identified.
That's not.
C, proposed action may involve construction on land where bedrock is exposed or generally within 5 feet of existing ground surface. In that case, depth of bedrock is approximately 10 feet. D, proposed action may involve the excavation and removal of more than 1,000 tons of natural material. 1,000 and natural material. So that's this is a former remediated brownfield site where there's been fill placed on the site. No. Proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or multiple phases.
What's their, what have they said? And does, I'm sorry, does the initial 12 months consider, the initial 12 months or the 6 + 6 months, site planning?
No, that means.
You're talking about those,
Yeah,
so
so
it's
it's
like,
gonna be the first to construction, yes.
and what does our thing say about when they need to start in construction?
The construction phase itself would be dependent upon the final plans approved by the planning board, so it's very
So
speculative.
we don't know, so it could be, yeah.
So what's the question I'm trying to answer?
Will the construction project be more than 1 year, 12 months?
Yeah.
Or until, yes,
So, yeah.
it does have the potential, yes.
So it's not the potential for yes, it's whether that's a no or small impact or moderate to low.
Higher for large,
Well,
because it's gonna be
So-
construction beyond a year. That's what we're saying.
It's not as simple, if it's more than 1 year, it's moderate to large, it's just saying. That this proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or multiple phases. And that either is a no or small impact, or that is a moderate to large impact.
Oh, like the construction itself.
So if the construction was a
Okay.
toothpick
Okay.
tower. Good example, but something that's small, that could take longer than 1 year, but that toothpick tower wouldn't have presumably have a moderate to large impact.
I think it's potentially moderate to large because of the
Yeah.
location, farmer's market, marina, other stuff down there. and-
Okay,
Yes.
so do we have a consensus on moderate to large?
Yes.
Yes.
One F, proposed action may result in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal, including from frequent pesticides. Proposed action is or may be located within a coastal erosion hazard area. Is it? No, it's not.
No.
Okay, any other impacts on land that anyone wants to discuss that wasn't in that list? Okay. Moving on to 2, impact on geological features, proposed action may result in modification or destruction of or inhibit access to any unique or unusual landforms on the site, for example, cliffs, dunes, minerals, fossil spaces.
No.
Okay, moving on to 3. Impacts on surface water, proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies, streams, rivers, pond buildings. 4, impact on groundwater. Proposed action may result in new or additional use of groundwater or may have the potential to introduce contaminants to groundwater or an aquifer.
No.
5, impact on flooding. Impact on flooding, proposed action may result in development on land subject to flooding.
Do we have an answer, definitive answer on that?
It's not within the existing floodplains.
With global warming and the amount of rain we've had this year and the amount of flooding in this north country, are there projections into the future about? Is there a potential future hazard there? Maybe it isn't now, but do you have anything that would indicate to us that it might be a future hazard?
We have seen pending mapping from FEMA adjusting the boundaries of the 100 to 500 year floodplains throughout the United States. But even with those maps, the area considered for development as part of this project is not subject to any of those areas.
Thank you.
So, yes or no on the?
No.
Okay, number 6. Impacts on air, proposed action may include a state regulated air emission source.
No.
7, impact on plants and animals, proposed action may result in a loss of flora or fauna.
No.
There are those woodchucks.
They're gonna move into the hotel.
Yeah.
8, impact on agricultural resources, proposed action may impact agricultural resources.
No.
9, impact on aesthetic resources, the land use of the proposed action are obviously different from or are in sharp contrast to current land use patterns between the proposed project and a scenic or aesthetic resource.
What? No, no, I don't think so.
So,
I don't think so.
10, impact on historic archaeological resources. Proposed action may occur in or adjacent to a historic or archaeological resource. In this case, the entirety of Cumberland Bay is a national historic landmark.
So yes. Is that considered Is that considered part of?
Well, it says adjacent to, and the property boundary does not include any waterfront, so technically it's not adjacent to, there is city-owned property that will remain between Plattsburgh Bay and the project.
So now,
11, impact on open space and recreation. Proposed action may result in a loss of recreational opportunities or a reduction of an open space resource as designated in any adopted municipal open space plan.
well, I do have a question about that. Is this plan as it's proposed, I realize it's not of the processes that has to go through, is it going to interfere in any way with that small little kayak station?
No,
Not at all. Do bigger boats launch from there? Or do they go down to Wilcox dock to do their?
you're talking about the very small kayak launch right next to the marina parking lot,
Yes.
no, it won't impact that.
They won't, okay.
And Council, if there is a boat launch down there, which is also not gonna be impacted by this construction,
They
correct?
have one like that in Exactly, it's right on, right near.
Well, because that's still on the city property, that's all part of the project. But there will still be access to that.
Yes, okay.
Cool,
Did we answer that question?
that's enough.
No.
12, impact on critical environmental areas. Proposed action may be located within or adjacent to a critical environmental area. In that case, if not, there are any. Yes.
No.
That's the plan. 13, impact on transportation. Proposed action may result in a change to existing transportation system.
No.
14, impact on energy. Proposed action may cause an increase in the use of any form of energy.
Yes.
Okay. So sub A. Proposed action will require new or an upgrade to an existing substation.
Yeah.
Well, substation rather than transformer, so we're talking something you would typically build for an entire subdivision, which is not contemplated as being for this project.
No.
Okay, proposed action will require the creation or extension of an energy transmission or supply system to serve more than 50 single or two-family residences or to serve a commercial or industrial site.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a yes, but is that a no or small or moderate?
Can you repeat it?
Proposed action will require the creation or extension of an energy transmission or supply system to serve, I'm going to skip over the two, a commercial or industrial site.
Well, does it, well,
Moderate.
yeah, but I mean, are they saying we're gonna, so like, I'm thinking like Reeves Lane where there is no transmission distribution out there and there needs to be an extension of our existing system.
Yeah.
An extension of our existing system versus we're putting a building in the middle of our existing system.
Talking about the creation or that is.
Okay, so then no, right, because it's already in the.
It's
existing
already-
system.
Basically talking about the
Transmission transformer.
development of new current.
But we're not gonna have to extend the existing system. It's already within the existing. And and if the Reeves Lane, comparison, is it correct?
No, that's,
So that is the.
very, that's, because surrounding the project site are existing city utilities, it's simply a matter of, as part of the construction of the project, linking into that existing utility system. Rather than having to specifically build out that utility system in order to serve project site.
Even if that means adding new transformers, it's still not an extension, is it still considered within, is it still considered not an extension?
This is talking about energy transmission or supply system. So to me, that's new wires or new connections. Like the Reeves Lane example.
But not something, not a big building that's being built in the current.
Infill development is generally not as.
Yeah, if you're building a large project right next to an existing transmission line and requires no extension, that would be no or small impact in the context of this question.
I would say no or small, if the transformer to the MLB is not a big deal.
Is there some mix, we can just do a straw poll, raise your hand if you think it's no
or small or moderate.
Okay, it feels like we just need to get
I
people.
know it's small.
No to small, just raise your hand, no to small. Okay, I can move.
Proposed action to utilize, this is 14C, proposed action to utilize more than 2,500 megawatt hours per year of electricity.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that.
Is it? I don't know.
The developer did reference it.
I cannot speak to like.
Very specialist.
I can speak to the developer and try and get a sense from them, but I don't know that.
And you know, they did commit, or I'll say formally commit, but he did allude to a desire to obtain the gold or silver, the LEED
Oh,
certified.
lead certification, yeah.
What does that even mean?
That reduced electricity use, but it doesn't speak to total usage, so.
Yeah, exactly, so if it's
Yeah.
only reducing a percentage of his usage, but it's still higher than. This,
Correct.
that, it's still what, moderate to large?
So the question is 2,500 megawatt hours.
Yeah.
Or I'm assuming, sorry, MW.
2,500 megawatts.
So the city's allocation through the existing power grid that we have is 100 megawatts.
Per month.
Per day,
Sorry,
102 megawatts a day.
2 megawatts of that.
That's the whole.
102 megawatts a day, that's what we get from Niagara Falls.
A
to the
day.
municipal
A
electric
day.
plant.
Right, so-
102 megawatts a day is what we
No.
buy or has power to
So
from.
this hotel would have
Every day.
to exceed the power use of the entire rest of the city in order for it to
And
exceed the threshold named in this question, so.
So that was small.
Yeah.
So no.
Proposed action may involve heating or cooling of more than 100,000 square feet of building.
100,000 square feet. 100,000?
100,000 square feet. Matt, you remember?
So there's 4,000 square feet of meeting space, a restaurant, call that another 4,000 square feet. 125 rooms, call that 1,000 square feet per room, that's,
20,000.
well, I would say 500 square feet per hotel room. So that's, yes, it would be less than 100,000.
So no. No.
No.
15, impact on noise, odor and light, proposed action may result in an increase in noise, odors or outdoor lighting.
No.
16, impact on human health, proposed action may have an impact on human health and exposure to new or existing sources of contaminants.
No.
17, consistency with the community plan, proposed action is not consistent with adopted land use plans. No,
No.
the triple negative.
Yeah, that's not.
18, consistency with community character. Another one, proposed project is inconsistent with the existing community character.
No.
No. That's that. Okay, so that was all I needed. And there'll be future resolutions coming to the council.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
We will continue with item 7.174.
147.
7.147.
79 Margaret Street.
Motion. Counselor Bob, second by Counselor Kelly, discussion.
What do we use this for anymore?
Yeah, it's the community engagement center, it's still staffed, actively staffed by members of the police department.
I walk by there quite often, I don't think I've ever seen anybody.
On Margaret Street.
Oh, okay. I got to see.
Yeah, there. It's right across from Hobie's.
Where's that? Okay, yeah.
Then it is funded, it's grant funded, it's community grant funded. Further discussion? Roll call.
Council Bond.
Yes.
Council Kelly.
Yes.
Council Gibbs.
Yes.
Council Talon.
Yes.
Council Bob.
Yes.
Council Moore.
Yes.
Carried.
Item 7.148, approval of the street closure on Calvin Lane from Jerry Drive to Autumn Drive.
Motion by Counselor Talon, second by Counselor Bob, discussion. Roll call.
Council Bond.
Yes.
Council Kelly.
Yes.
Council Gibbs.
Yes.
Council Talon.
Yes.
Council Bob.
Yes.
Council Moore.
Yes.
Carried.
Item 7.149, travel request city clerk.
Motion. Counselor Bob, second by Counselor Talon, discussion. Roll call.
Council Bond.
Yes.
Council Kelly.
Yes.
Council Gibbs.
Yes.
Council Talon.
Yes.
Council Bob.
Yes.
Council Moore.
Yes.
Carried.
Item 7.150, authorized memorandum of agreement, Plattsburgh Permanent Firemen's Association, local 2412 in city of Plattsburgh.
Motion. Counselor Bob, second, Counselor Kelly, discussion. Roll call.
Council Vaughn.
Yes.
Council Kelly.
Yes.
Council Gibbs.
Yes.
Council Talon. Yes. Council Bob.
Yes.
Council Moore.
Yes.
Carried. No need for executive session, any new business to come from the council?
Yes, I have a proposal for council that I would like considered and acted on if we can, and this will likely be something we take on with the finance meeting. Moving forward on this hotel agreement and development downtown, I realize there are many other steps along the way, but we have in our confidential documents, we have a proposed agreement. And I think we all want this project to be successful if it goes through as proposed. I think everybody would like that. But because it is a really valuable piece of property and what it would take to build and make that up and running, I would like to call for an independent feasibility study to make sure that the project as proposed would be successful in the city of Plattsburgh, and that would require an outside vendor. Likely they conducted their own feasibility study, but I think we owe it to the taxpayers before we go through on a really large project like this. To call for a feasibility study, and I don't know how the rest of council feels, if they would like to move forward with that, or something for discussion at our next finance meeting, but I wanted to bring that up during new business.
Well, I think that's a good idea. I mean, we had a similar thing happen a couple of decades ago that I don't think the city did their proper due diligence at that time. It wouldn't be a bad idea just to, get an outside idea on this. I've got mixed feelings about this. I think the idea is a good one, but I would hate to see something fall apart somewhere between here and there. So I don't think it's a bad idea.
Matt, sorry, how many studies have the city performed to define this portion of the property, the highest best use of this portion of the city property?
Within the last 20 years alone, the city has contracted for 3 separate highest and best use analyses to be conducted of the proposed development site. And in each case, the studies come back and stated that the highest and best use for that site is a hotel.
Yeah, but is it economically feasible? I mean, is someone actually gonna come up and put the money up and say, yeah, we're gonna do this? That's the thing. Yeah, that's probably the best use for it. But is it economically feasible to put something like that there?
And especially because the town of Plattsburgh is putting in more hotel conference centers. This is gonna compete with that. And I agree, I think Jeff framed that very well, that is the best recommended use for the property, but what is the feasibility of this project as it's suggested to the taxpayers before we move forward in very large endeavor? We've been burned before. I think we owe the taxpayers, it would be an expenditure that we haven't budgeted, but it would not be $500,000 to call for something like this. And I don't see the harm in looking for a feasibility study on this project in this market. And breaking down all the components of how this operation would work, would it be feasible, would it be profitable?
I will also say that as part of one of the constituent PRI projects, it was the project specific to Dock Street. There was a hotel feasibility analysis conducted, I'm going to say in 2019, that spoke to that very question. We can provide that for council.
It's 2019. I think that we owe it to the city to do this. And if council doesn't agree, then that's fine. But I think that it is worth putting forward for discussion. So if remainder of council doesn't support it, that's fine. But others need to speak up.
I don't agree with Councilor Gibbs because if you look at the history of that site, there have been hotels proposed there numerous times in the past. And I think this, when we do something like this, we send a message to the developer, well, these guys are skeptics or something like that. And I don't want to do that this time. I want this to be a huge success. A former mayor of Reed quite often said that when Plattsburgh is not shooting itself in the foot, it's loading the gun to do it again. So we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot here. We do, if you go back and read those documents carefully that were provided to us, there are numerous instances where feasibility studies were done in the past. And because they're in the past, that doesn't make them invalid. They're still valid. So I would say, let's not consume any more of the developer's time while we do this exercise when this exercise has already been done several times.
Well, my only comment, I'm sorry, let him say the last thing I'll say on it. As it stands today, there is no hotel there. So if it was such a dynamite location, there would have been some place there long before now. So I'm just saying that, like Councilor Gibbs said, we've gotten burned on this before. We got a big parking lot in the middle of there that has no purpose whatsoever. You can make mistakes. I don't think I am smart enough to know, yes, the developers are always going, oh, we're gonna do this. But the fact of the matter is, there's nothing there now, so if it hasn't happened up to now, I would want to make sure that it's just a good business thing to cover our end of it. The developer is covering his end. I don't think they need any help, but we should be making sure that we're on the right track.
I think you also could take into consideration the development agreement, and a number of factors, caveat that does protect the city of Plattsburgh, specific to outside agencies, outside of the developer themselves, to say, yes, it is a feasible project that we're willing to spend millions, dozens of millions of dollars on this project because of the feasibility of the project. Has nothing to do with the developer. I could be a developer that says I want to build 100 units of property on Reeves Lane, and unless my outside funding agency says, yes, this is a viable project, it's feasible, it can be funded, that is also an indication whether or not the success of that project, based on those experts' assessments, it is also a factor that comes into play here. And that's also part of our development agreement, along with a number of other caveats that does protect the city and protect the city there from fly by night, if you will, developers or developer that may or may not know what they're doing.
I think that we,
So I mean, I'm gonna go with it and just, and finish. And I know this is frustrating and we all, we want this to happen. I want this to happen. So, but my question is, because I'm not familiar with all of this. Have they, I know we do the visibility, right? The city does. Has the developer done anything to? I think I asked this one before, I don't remember. Did they do something? Have they done something?
Yeah, they spent over, I think, $100,000 thus far in their own due diligence to make sure that there's a viable economic model showing the hotel in that location.
Okay, that was my question.
Yep.
On, we just need to kind of.
Well, and the other thing to add is that as far as the taxpayers, I mean, once this deal is moving forward, there is not a risk to the taxpayers. They are taking, the developer is taking on this financial responsibility. We are not a partner in this project. So it's not our problem. That's their problem to make sure that it's financially solvent and feasible, which I have no doubt that they're very focused on doing, as we've said. And again, while I agree that outdated studies, it's important to have updated, fresh information. When we have over the course of 20 years, 3 consistent studies with that information and a combination feasibility study from 2019, I think that that's pretty solid data to work forward on. What would be a risk to the taxpayers would be spending this unbudgeted money to do something that's been done ad nauseam. Except that those studies were done before COVID and hotels and restaurants are closing up. The downtown restaurants themselves can be testament to how hard it is to find good wait staff. I've talked to experts in the industry, they voice the same concerns. I think we need to spend less time worrying about the developer and more time worrying about the taxpayer. Because once that property is conveyed over, and if it fails, I hope it succeeds. We all want it to succeed. And if an independent feasibility study indicates that this is a great project for that property in this market, in competition with everything else in the town, what do we have to lose? Except an enormous piece of property that we will never get back. We do have the ability to take it back. That's in the contract.
Yeah, I would certainly.
Not in the contract until we've signed it. Well, I'm just saying that that's part of the drafted contract.
So I would, again, go back to the development agreement and look at the number of protections that are built into that agreement for the city of Plattsburgh. And, we have been, to Jeff's point, we have been burnt by previous developers that want to go down there and they haven't followed through. And I think anybody would be hard pressed to say, well, hotels are closing, but yet there's hotel developments that are happening in the town of Plattsburgh, or certainly projected to happen in the town of Plattsburgh. But, and those are feasible, but the one down here, right on the waterfront, which would be Plattsburgh's only waterfront hotel, would not be feasible. And I think that, I don't know if we can have both, I don't know if we can have both. The argument that hotels are closing and there's hotels opening in the town of Plattsburgh, and then this one is gonna fail.
Those are filled up right now.
Yeah.
I've heard.
And-
People from Burlington want to stay
Yeah.
over here. I mean,
And again, that,
Airbnb's going
Sorry.
all.
sure, yeah, and again, opinions aside, honestly, opinions aside. Lean on the development agreement, that's why it's there, it's built to protect the city taxpayer. I'm, again, when I look at the number of feasibility studies and best use studies that say this is the appropriate thing to do. I look at the experts that are looking to back this project, again, based on the development agreement, that is a caveat. Funding this project is a caveat of signing the development agreement, it has to be there. Can't just sign the development agreement and then the funding doesn't come. It's a component of the development agreement. Again, protect the taxpayer to ensure that the project is funded. There's marks for ensuring the project gets complete. There are caveats in the development agreement to ensure the project gets complete, or there are clawbacks. So there's a lot of protection, and I agree. I think we should protect the city taxpayer. I'm not of the mindset of hiring a third party to do a feasibility study on hotel development, which is not a hotel, not the city's hotel development, but a third party. I think that would be akin to saying, hey, there's gonna be a pizza shop opening up downtown and we should do a feasibility study for a pizza shop because there are 3 other pizza shops downtown and that might fail. I don't think that's the mindset for us. But again, my opinion aside, that's why we have the development agreement. That's why we have these legal mechanisms to protect the city.
How much would a feasibility study cost?
100,000 maybe?
Perhaps there's a group of citizens who would like to pursue this rather than the city. You could gather up enough support from citizens to do this. So, let some outside source pay for it.
Councilor Gibbs certainly doesn't prevent you from bringing an item to consider for committee and debating it there as well. Any new business, any other new business? Seeing that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. A motion by Councilor Towns, second by Councilor Bob. All in favor? Yeah. Thank you.